The other big benefit that's important, especially as far as taxes go, is the retirement program. Here, the respondents, the small businesses in New Hampshire, are not offering a lot of coverage. 74% match retirement contributions up to 25%. In other words, almost 3/4 of the respondents do not give more than 25% matching coverage on 401k or 403b plans. They don't offer it, or they give less than 25%. 16% match 76 to 100% of the employee's contribution. That is fairly normal for those businesses. But many of the small businesses just do not have the resources to do this. That, again, could become important as the economy recovers. People will start to look for better benefits. They'll start to look for better income, and they will want to try to succeed. Now we come to the economy. First off, we take a look, and about 72% said that the economy kind of either improved slightly or stayed the same, and only about 30% said that the economy worsened in the last year. The data indicates that, for the most part, the economy in New Hampshire is a little bit better. The unemployment rate on a seasonally adjusted basis is about 6.7% in New Hampshire right now. It was as high as 7.2% last year. It deteriorated pretty much from 2008. In 2008, the unemployment rate in the state was only about 4%. So during 2009, after the recession officially started in December of 2007, but it didn't seem to hit New Hampshire until after the credit crisis, which was in the fall of 2008. In those last few months of 2008, the unemployment rate started to pick up, and then continued to pick up through most of 2009, then going down now again in 2010. The economy has begun to pick up a little bit. The national economy has begun to pick up. You had a negative growth rate for 2009, but most people think that the economy will grow at about 3 to 3.5% for 2010, and somewhere around the same for 2011. New Hampshire is well positioned to do at least as well as the general economy does. Most of the resources are already here. There aren't any big problems that the state shouldn't be able to handle over the next couple of months and the next couple of years. And therefore, as the economy begins to grow. The one area that we're talking about, though, is going back to the first thing that I talked about, is the small businesses. Most of our small businesses do not engage in export-driven trade. One of the things that caused the expansion in the fourth quarter of 2009 and the first quarter of this year was the fact that as the dollar dropped, exports became cheaper, and therefore it was an export-driven growth increase. Also, the government has played a big role in hiring and spending. The stimulus package that was passed over a year ago. We didn't participate very much in either of those, and that will be the question. In order for small businesses to grow, it's going to have to be consumer-driven. And the evidence is that the consumers have begun to spend. The last month, the confidence survey increased for the fourth straight month. As jobs increase, people's confidence goes up. When people feel like they don't have to worry about their job, they are more likely to spend. Housing prices have kind of bottomed out. They're not really rising yet, but they don't seem to be falling. And some of the new programs that the government has put in to modify mortgages and so on will make that drop a little bit less. Now, here you get into what I like to call like a macro-micro problem, where macroeconomically it would be better if the prices just hit bottom, if we just didn't do anything to modify mortgages or anything and just let the prices hit bottom, and then the recovery could start. In fact, if there hadn't been efforts to hold up housing prices like the tax credit program and so on that ended the end of last month, the economy might have recovered a little bit faster. But that's leaving out all those people who will be losing their jobs. That's the micro side of the equation. There are a lot of people out there who, in some cases through no fault of their own, maybe they lost their job, whatever, are finding it difficult to handle their mortgage. As housing prices go down, many of them find themselves underwater. They don't, meaning that their house is not worth what their mortgage says it's worth. And they find it difficult to function. So the government has a responsibility to take care of some of those people. Now, it's tricky because you're also going to be offering modifications to people who probably shouldn't have gotten the mortgage in the first part. In fact, much of the evidence indicates that nearly half of the people who get modifications are still not able to pay their mortgages because they were so far, they never should have gotten the mortgage in the first part, and it's very difficult. So there's been that fight. But now that the housing tax credit has passed, and we've gone through two and a half years of correction, it appears that housing prices have clumbed. If they're not at the bottom, they're pretty damn close, and they're going to stay there, and they'll rise slowly as the economy recovers. So that helps, because when people don't have those falling home prices, again, they feel more confident. And if the consumer begins to spend, and that's what most people are looking at, they're not looking at export-driven trade anymore. J.P. Morgan's survey that came out yesterday indicates that they're not looking for that. The trouble in Europe, the slight slowdown that's going to take place in Asia indicates that export-driven trade is not going to be what gets us out of this recovery. It's going to have to be the private sector, the consumer. The government is not going to be able to throw in, they're putting together another stimulus package, but it's going to be much smaller, less than a quarter of what the package was a year ago, and it is going to add to the debt and add to the troubles with financing. But it is not going to be enough to drive the economy forward. It is going to have to be the consumer, and the consumer is the one that's the most important for the small business. If he wants to or she wants to expand their business, then they're going to need evidence that the consumer is coming in and buying those goods. And there is evidence that this is beginning to happen, and that the economy is beginning to improve, especially for the small businesses and for those that are not export-driven. In 2010, most businesses are expecting that sales will improve. That goes along with their plans on expansion. And again, it fits in with what I was just talking about. If the consumer is there and the consumer has the funds and the consumer is confident that the future looks better, then the consumer is going to be. And in a lot of cases, there's been a lot of deferred spending. People haven't been running out and buying things that they wanted to buy over the last year or two because they haven't had that confidence. As they get that confidence, they're going to turn around and say, yeah, the future looks a little bit brighter. And that's what most businesses are banking on, especially those that plan on expanding.